Here's a wild thought. The emotional quality of every relationship you have was pretty much decided before you were 2 years old. Now, that sounds impossible, right? But in this explainer, we're going to show you exactly how it happens. We'll pull back the curtain on the 4 core survival styles that secretly run your love life, and, more importantly, how you can actually start rewriting your own internal history.
I know this statement is a heavy one, but according to decades of research, it's also profoundly true. Now, this isn't about fate, not at all. It's about a script, an ancient survival program you developed before you could even talk, and it's been running your relationships on autopilot ever since. See, this script was a brilliant adaptation to whatever environment you grew up in. It was designed to keep you safe. But now, as an adult, that same script can be the very thing holding you back from the connection you crave. But here's the good news, and it's really good news. You can access that programming. You can make a conscious choice to change it.
So here's our roadmap for this whole thing. First, we're going to talk about that feeling of being on a relationship autopilot. Then, we'll dig into where it all comes from, this ancient survival system, and decode the blueprint it uses, which is called your internal working model. We'll look at why these patterns are so darn sticky, and then we get to the really good part, the actionable stuff, how to rewrite your history and finally choose real connection over those old familiar comfort zones.
All right, let's dive right in. We're going to start with a feeling I think a lot of us know way too well, the pain of being stuck in a loop. You know, having the same kind of relationship, the same arguments, over and over again, no matter how hard you try to make things different.
Yeah? That feeling? Researchers have a name for it: relational distress. It's that exhausting, totally confusing cycle where you either find yourself clinging to your partners, terrified they're going to leave, or you're the one instinctively pushing them away when things get too close, feeling suffocated and just needing space. You might consciously want this deep, stable, loving connection, but it feels like some invisible force keeps yanking you back into the same painful dynamic. You might even break up with someone, totally convinced they were the problem, only to find the exact same issues popping up with someone new. That, right there, is the autopilot at work.
Now, this is so important. I really want you to hear this. This pattern is not a flaw in your character. It is not because you're bad at relationships or you're too needy or emotionally unavailable. It is an outdated survival script that was brilliantly programmed into your nervous system a long, long time ago. And this script runs automatically, way below your conscious awareness, and it overrides all your best intentions, keeping you locked in the very patterns that get in the way of the intimacy you actually want.
Okay, so to really understand this script, we have to go way, way back. We need to stop thinking about love as just a modern romantic idea and start seeing it for what it is at its core: a primal, evolutionary program designed for one main purpose: survival.
Think about it. For a helpless human baby, being physically close to a caregiver is literally the difference between life and death. So our brains evolved this incredibly powerful, non-negotiable system to make sure that happens. It's a biological command. So now, as an adult, when your relationship triggers some old primal fear, like the terror of being abandoned or the feeling of being smothered, this ancient system hijacks your modern, rational brain. Suddenly, the argument isn't about who was supposed to take out the trash. On a deep, physiological level, your brain is reacting as if your very survival is on the line.
And this system created 4 main strategies to survive. If you have a secure style, you learned your caregiver was a reliable source of comfort. You felt safe to go explore the world because you knew you had a secure base to come home to. Someone with an anxious style often had a caregiver who was inconsistent, sometimes there, sometimes not. So you learned to turn up the volume on your needs to get really good at sensing shifts, maybe even clinging, just to get that attention. The avoidance style, on the other hand, usually had a caregiver who was pretty distant or discouraged big emotions. So you learned to turn the volume down, to suppress your needs and become super self-reliant to avoid pushing that caregiver away even more. And finally, the fearful-avoidant style, which is also called disorganized, often meant your caregiver was a source of both comfort and fear, which is a really confusing place to be. But here's the key. These aren't just personality quirks. They are brilliant adaptive strategies for survival.
So, how does this ancient system run the show in our adult lives decades later? Well, the answer is this powerful concept called the internal working model. The easiest way to think about it is like the silent blueprint, or maybe the unconscious operating software for your entire relationship system.
Your internal working model, or IWM for short, is basically a mental map of how relationships are supposed to work, and it was drawn based on your earliest experiences. It's a set of deep, core beliefs and lightning-fast predictions about what's going to happen when you need someone. Are they going to be there for you? Are they going to reject you? Will they overwhelm you? This model just hums along in the background, automatically guiding how you react and shaping what you see before you even have a chance to think. It is the lens through which you see every single one of your intimate connections.
So let's break down how this autopilot loop actually plays out in real time. First, something happens, an activation cue. It could be tiny, your partner seems a little distant, or takes a while to text back. Your brain senses a threat to the bond. Instantly, step 2, your IWM makes a prediction based on its old map. For an anxious style, it might just scream, "They're leaving! They're pulling away!" Third, your body launches its pre-programmed strategy. The anxious style might start to cling or chase to try and close that gap. The avoidant style might pull back and shut down to protect themselves from getting hurt. And then comes the really crucial fourth step that locks it all in. The pattern gets reinforced. See, the strategy gives a quick, temporary hit of relief. The clinging might get a response. The withdrawing numbs the anxiety for a minute. And that little bit of relief acts like a reward, cementing the whole loop and making sure it happens again and again, even if it causes more pain in the long run.
I love this because it shows how these two strategies are just two sides of the same coin. They look like total opposites, but they are both driven by the exact same core fear, the fear of disconnection. The anxious style uses what we call hyperactivation. The core belief is, I have to ramp everything up and force closeness to feel safe. The goal is just to get attention, to get some reassurance that the bond is okay. The avoidant style uses deactivation. The core belief there is, my needs are dangerous, they lead to rejection. I have to create distance to be safe. The goal is to shut down emotions, end the conflict, and get back to that feeling of self-reliant safety by pulling away. Both are just desperate attempts to manage the terror of disconnection in a way that worked a long time ago.
Okay, so this is the big question, right? If these patterns cause us so much pain as adults, why on earth are they so incredibly hard to change? Well, the answer is all about how our brains learn and lock in any behavior that it thinks is essential for our survival.
This whole system gets sealed in place by a powerful mechanism called reinforcement learning. Imagine you're a tiny baby. If your caregiver was inconsistent, you had to figure out a way to get your needs met. If crying louder, hyperactivating, eventually got them to come over, your little baby brain went, aha, success, that worked. It coded that as a win. Or if going quiet and suppressing your needs, deactivating, kept a stressed out parent from pulling away even more, your brain coded that as a success too. It doesn't matter that it was painful or imperfect. The strategy worked just enough to achieve the main biological goal, keeping your caregiver close. And that little success signal hardwired the strategy into your brain, making it your go-to default response to relationship threats forever.
And what's really wild is we can actually see this in brain scans. When people feel a threat in their relationship, those with an anxious style show a ton of activity in their limbic system. That's the brain's raw emotion and threat detection center. They are literally flooded with feeling. But in contrast, folks with an avoidance style show high activity in their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles logic and suppression. They are actively using their brain's CEO to shut down and push away their attachment needs. So you have two totally different brain pathways, both aiming for the exact same ancient goal of survival. All right, deep breath. We've talked about the problem, where it came from, how it works in the brain, and why it's so persistent. Now we get to shift to the most important part of all, what we can actually do about it. This is where we go from being controlled by the pattern to consciously choosing to create a new one. This is the path to what's called earned secure attachment.
So the crucial question becomes, how do you actually do this? How do you interrupt an emotional prediction that's been running your whole life at lightning speed? How do you take your hands off the autopilot, especially when you're feeling panicked or totally overwhelmed, and start steering your relationships where you really want them to go?
Well, it comes down to a clear, 3-step process that you can actually practice. Step 1, recognize the trigger. This is all about mindfulness, just learning to notice the feelings in your body and the emotions that tell you, uh-oh, my autopilot just kicked in. That tightness in your chest, that urge to check their last seen status. Step 2, reframe the story. You have to consciously interrupt the old catastrophic narrative that's flooding your brain. And step 3, and this is absolutely critical, execute a new action. You have to choose a new behavior that directly contradicts your old script. This is how you give your brain new evidence and literally build new neural pathways.
Okay, for step 2, here is your power tool,
This is the single most powerful phrase you can use. When you feel that wave of anxiety or that compulsive need to shut down, you pause, you take a breath, and you tell yourself this exact sentence. This reaction is an old, programmed survival strategy, not a fact about this relationship. This phrase is like magic. It creates this crucial little space between feeling and action. It separates your past from your present. It honors the intensity of the feeling without buying into its story as the absolute truth. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your own mind.
And for step 3, we need concrete actions that give our brains new, corrective data. So, for the anxious style, the intervention is the 20-minute pause. When you feel that frantic, desperate urge to text or call or chase for reassurance, you make yourself wait 20 minutes. It's mandatory. This isn't a punishment. It's about letting the flood of stress hormones in your body actually subside so you can act from a calmer place. Now, for the avoidant style, the intervention is proximity intentionality. When your impulse is to pull away and shut down, you commit to staying emotionally present for just 2 minutes longer than what feels comfortable. It will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is the feeling of your brain rewiring itself. Both of these actions are designed to prove your old map wrong. They show your brain that you can survive the discomfort and that a different, more connected outcome is actually possible.
This all brings us to the real goal of this work. It's about reframing the whole struggle and understanding what we're actually fighting for and, what we're fighting against in our relationships.
So often, we blame our relationship problems on our partner or on this vague idea of we're just not compatible. But attachment theory shows us a deeper, much more compassionate truth. The conflict is almost never really about the dishes or the money. It's about the collision of two people's survival mechanisms. One person's strategy for safety, seeking closeness, directly triggers the other person's core fear and their strategy for safety, which is creating distance. Just understanding this changes everything. It moves you from blame to compassion for both yourself and your partner. Your style isn't a moral failing. It's a brilliant developmental adaptation.
And really, this is the fundamental takeaway. If you remember one thing, let it be this. While, it takes two people to build a healthy relationship, the most profound and lasting change always comes from within. The power to transform your connections doesn't come from trying to fix your partner. It comes from having the courage to turn inward, to understand and update your own internal script. Because when you do that work, you bring a more secure, centered version of yourself to every single interaction, and that changes the entire dance.
So please remember this, your attachment style feels like it's a fundamental, unchangeable part of who you are, but it is not your destiny. It is a learned mechanism. It's a script written by a much younger version of you just trying to stay safe in the world you are in. And because you are now an adult with consciousness, with courage, and with choice, you have the power to pick up the pen. You get to write the next scene.